Welcome to the July meeting of the Long Island Committee. Ira, good morning. Okay. Do we have any public speakers? Okay. We have the minutes of the June 17th, 2008 meeting. Second. Any discussion, concerns? All in favor? Okay. Long Island Bus. Joseph.
Good morning, members of the Long Island Committee. There are no changes to the work plan this month. I'm pleased to announce that for the first time this weekend, Long Island Bus will be joining MTA Bus and New York City Department of Buses in an annual bus rodeo. The rodeo will be held this weekend at Floyd Bennett Field on Saturday and Sunday from 7 to 5. It's an absolutely fabulous event. We have a great time. I bring my kids. All the operators bring their families, and we really have a good time. And then our operators compete. The winners compete in the state rodeo, and eventually they go to the competition for the whole United States, and we've done really well in the last several years. This year also, for the first time, Suffolk Transit, which has normally participated with Long Island Bus, is also going to join us in the rodeo. So it's a great thing for everyone. My next item is Operations Performance Report. Overall, May bus service was strong. AM and PM weekday pullouts and completed trips were all above 99% for both the month of May and the previous 12 months. Bus MDBF was 2164 in May, which was up 3%, over 3% from the previous May. Our 12-month average, though, is slightly 1.8% lower than it was a year ago. But we had a great June, so those are some good numbers. With regard to safety performance, we had some mixed results. The 12-month rate for bus collisions per million miles traveled worsened by 2% from last year, and the 12-month rate for employee on-duty lost time accidents improved by over 35%. With respect to ridership levels, bus ridership is trending downward for the month of May and for the previous 12 months as compared to 2008. Our total fixed route ridership decreased by 7% for the month of May. It's one of our worst months that we had in a while, and was down 2.2% for the previous 12 months. Average weekday ridership was down 4.7% for the month of May and down 1.6% for the previous 12 months. Average weekend ridership was also down 8% for the month of May. This all has to do with overall Nassau County's high unemployment rate, which is affecting our bus operations. However, paratransit ridership continues to increase. In comparison to 2008, ridership increased by 3.3% for the month of May and 7.9% for the 12-month period. We're continuing to make adjustments to our service patterns and frequencies to make it more consistent and more marketable. We have been reinvesting the savings from our streamlining efforts that you see every month here back into service to help support the most effective improvement in service schedules. So what we've been doing is when we streamline a route and we make some service changes, the savings we get from doing that, we roll it into evening headways and things of that nature, trying to attract more people to our system. Next is our finance report. Fixed route fare box revenue for May 2009 was lower than budget by 2.4%. Year-to-date, it is 2.7% below budget. Paratransit fare box revenue was 14.3% better than budget for the month of May and is 9.3% above budget for the year-to-date. Actual non-reimbursable expenses before non-cash adjustments were lower than budget by $4.9 million or 9.3%. This is primarily due to vacancies, lower than budget fuel prices, and favorable adjustments to budgeted expenses for claims. In conjunction of this finance report, I've asked Tom Del Sorbo to briefly discuss Long Island Bus's July financial plan for 2010 through 2013. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Joe, and good morning, members of the committee. The July financial plan, which will be presented next week in much greater detail at the Finance Committee meeting, represents for LIB a continuation of regional bus efforts to both enhance service and improve maintenance performance, all within existing funding levels. I'm going to present just a very brief overview of the 2010 plan, which will have the following highlights. On the revenue side, the plan reflects slightly lower fixed route ridership levels due to the unfavorable employment forecasts. Paratransit ridership levels continue to show increases. Overall, the projected decrease in fixed route ridership will lower the fare box revenue gains that we expected from the 10% increase in fares. On the expense side, the Long Island Bus Plan reflects the full restoration of all service reductions that were originally accepted in the AABB plan before New York State passed legislation addressing the MTA's revenue needs. In addition, the July plan for Long Island Bus will include important investments in improved oversight and control of bus service on the road and the full implementation of a SPEAR maintenance tracking and reporting system that will help us more efficiently manage maintenance activities. The cost of these investments are offset by CNG fuel savings due to lower pricing, continued savings in the reduction of administrative positions, and a small decrease in the number of maintenance positions that result from us adopting zero-based budgeting allocation models that we've implemented already in New York City Transit Bus and MTA Bus. The entire 2010 to 2013 plan and the 2009 forecast will be presented at the Finance Committee for review. Are there any questions?
Questions of anybody at the moment?
Okay. Okay, thank you, Tom. We have no action items or non-competitive procurements this month, but we do have one competitive procurement and two ratifications for the committee's approval. The competitive item is a request for MTA Bus and Long Island Bus to exercise an option to extend the term of a contract with Thrift Auto Painting Company for 1 year. This is a competitively bid miscellaneous service contracts for structural repairs to the Orion bus fleet. The amount of the contract is not to exceed $840,000. $240,000 of that is for Long Island Bus, and each contract will be funded from the respective agency's operating budget. I request the committee's approval for this competitive procurement.
Second. Any questions on the matter? All in favor? Aye.
The first ratification is a non-competitive procurement for emergency sewer line repair service performed by Citywide Sewer and Drain Service at the paratransit facility. Immediate repairs were necessary to ensure employee safety and prevent disruption to Able Ride services. This work was conducted with the assistance and approval of Nassau County's Department of Health. The amount of the service was $49,175.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye.
The second ratification addresses Long Island Bus use of a New York City Transit Department of Bus miscellaneous service contract with Polaris Laboratories, LLC. This is a competitively bid, board-approved New York City contract for bus coolant analysis services for a fixed route fleet. Long Island Bus is using the same coolant sampling process as New York City and MTA Bus to ensure effective cooling. What we're doing is we're piggybacking on the other companies' contracts. Gives us the best prices that we could get, and it's the smart way to go. The amount of the contract was $72,000. I request the committee's approval for these two ratifications.
I move it.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Okay. We have two work plan items to report as information this month. First is our capital program quarterly report for the second quarter of 2009. I'd like to highlight a few major accomplishments. Long Island Bus completed acceptance of the 100th Orion 7 Next Generation CNG bus. These buses were placed into service at the end of the second quarter. Long Island Bus also exercised the option to purchase 30 replacement paratransit buses for delivery in 2010 and awarded a contract to purchase 4 sedans for paratransit service during the next quarter. We believe that using sedans in certain cases over the big vehicle is a big cost savings for us, and we're just going to start rolling it out as a pilot program in Long Island Bus. And the Hempstead Transit Facility upgrade is 99% complete. Project completion is scheduled for the third quarter of 2009. The second work plan item is a quarterly bus technology report that we added to the work plan at the May meeting. I am also pleased to tell you that part of our regional bus initiative, the request-to-stop service currently used by New York City Transit and MTA Bus will be implemented at Long Island Bus beginning August 1st. As you can tell by this placket back here, and it's basically, would you like your own personal bus stop? And that's what it lets us do. It allows a customer between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. to stop anywhere along the route that's safe. So if you want to stop, instead of going several blocks to the bus stop, if you want to stop at the block that's on your corner, you can request the driver to do so after 10 o'clock. We do the same exact thing at the other two companies. The customers love it, so we're going to start rolling that out with everyone's permission.
That is absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
One of the most positive things I've heard in a long time.
At the TA in New York City, it's a great, it was very popular for
Okay.
years. I
Yes.
thought it was being done already.
I
Yeah.
didn't know it was being done out there.
Yeah. So.
It can get really desolate.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it really, people love it in the city. The drivers, we're going to put up car cards like this, and you're going to see other, I know this is a really small one, but you're going to see other versions like this, and we're going to put them up in all the buses, and we hope to start this service on August 1st, with your help. That
Congratulations.
concludes my remarks on the agenda, and I'll take any questions anyone has.
Any questions at all for Joe? Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Ira. Sorry.
On the Orion bus contract, this is a side question, but how old are those buses?
The Orion buses that are being replaced right now, the 100 new buses that came in, replace buses that are like 14 years old.
No, I'm sorry. I'm referring to the contract for the repair. Those buses that are being, there's something wrong with the frames of some
Right.
Orion buses. Those.
Right. The buses that they're repairing are 96s, 97s, 98s.
So they're 10 years old.
Yes.
And this problem occurred.
Every bus that we buy cracks, just from the
Okay.
fact it's in this
Okay.
environment, it's a rough environment, and we're able to have this company repair them just to get them along until we're able to replace them with new
To the
buses.
14 to 15 years.
Yes,
they need.
right. Yes.
This is so the transit too?
Transit repairs a lot of them in-house, but MTA Bus does not. MTA Bus sends a lot of them out also.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Joe, thank you very much. Helena?
Okay, put your proper hat on.
Yeah.
That's back with us.
It's over here, even though I love this and don't want to cover it up in any way. Couldn't be better. Okay, good morning. I'm delighted to be here as president of the Long Island Railroad.
Because we're never going to let you go. You know that.
I am soon. Would you talk to Albany, please? Okay. We do have two train operation issues that we would like to bring to your attention before we begin with the regular agenda. And the first is an incident that I'm sure you saw some of the media coverage on, and it involves an engineer who allowed an unauthorized person, the allegation is to operate the train. We're working with the MTA Police Department, the MTA IG's office, and the Nassau County District Attorney to pursue that investigation and to determine exactly what happened. But separate and apart from that, I wanted to address with you steps we're taking to remind employees of their responsibility. I do want to say that I believe this incident is really a standalone incident. We have a very dedicated, very professional workforce who take a great deal of pride in the work that they do. Engineers go through 2 years of training. Both the represented workforce and managers would look at this as a, complete aberration. But notwithstanding that, it's always an opportunity for us to examine what our own protocols are and remind employees so that we are tight in our own operation. So we will be issuing, policy statements and directives that engineers must clearly display their IDs, that anybody who is an engineer trainee must have particular identification that can be displayed and seen, without any questions. A notice to train crews that there is an existing rule that prohibits unauthorized individuals from being in train cabs and certainly from operating trains. Notice to employees about the need to stay clear of the operating cab on all trains. In other words, we have employees who may be using our trains actually to get to and from work. And while they may know fellow employees, they need to stay clear of the train cab at all times. And that any time that there is somebody in the train cab for observation purposes, they would have their ID displayed as well. Or if supervision is there for, another track inspection type program, and we do have those, supervision is always present so that the people doing a track inspection, for example, would never ask a question of the engineer that might distract the engineer. And while we have all of these, rules, we're going to reinforce them, put them out there, and make sure that we do some follow-up inspections as well, just to ensure compliance. So those random checks have actually already begun. And we will stay on this, and we'll stay on the investigation. We're cooperating with everyone in the investigation. I do have to say it was a customer who alerted us on the very day we were able to take the engineer out of service, the very day of the incident. So we did work on this, very carefully and quickly. I'm going to go to another issue, which is a difficult train issue as well, and one that affects many families. It can affect our own engineers. The Long Island Railroad, like other transportation agencies, has been the site of suicide and suicide attempts. It's been a historic issue at the railroad. We can have anywhere in the range of 20 to 25 suicides a year. And while the Long Island Railroad has always had an integrated safety outreach program, we call it TRACS, and Operation Lifesaver, which talks about safety in and around train tracks, until now we have not had a specific public outreach that was directed towards suicide. In regard to other, transit agencies, this of course, happens. Unfortunately, incidents in almost all train operations across the United States. We're going to pilot a program that then we would share with New York City Transit and Metro North, to see if it has value to them. The FRA conducted a study, which was published in 2008, to identify causes of rail-related suicides and ultimately to develop a public education program focused on those at risk. And we've looked at that study and tried to develop our program based on some of those recommendations. I also want to point out that between 2008 and 2009, MTA Bridges and Tunnels installed telephones on a number of their facilities with a connection to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline phone number. And I think, there's been a phone on the Tappan Zee as well for many years. What we did was start discussing suicide prevention, and we were contacted by the executive director of the Long Island Crisis Center. And Linda Leonard, who is that executive director, has worked very closely with us in developing this pilot program. The Crisis Center deals with Nassau County, and we wanted a similar program in Suffolk County, and we worked with Response of Suffolk County. Those are two local suicide prevention agencies to develop this pilot program. What we've done is set up a special hotline number, and we've made the public aware through posters. Here's an example that will be displayed at Long Island Railroad stations. Calls from the 516 area code will be directed to the Long Island Crisis Center, and calls from the 631 code will go to the Response of Suffolk County. Calls from other area codes will rotate between the two agencies. So we're covering the 718, 212, and 646 as well. Trained counselors at both agencies have specific protocols in place to deal with calls, including how to contact immediately MTA and local police, and to use all the techniques they have to try to dissuade people who may be making that last phone call. By partnering with these two agencies, we hope to give people an opportunity to speak to an experienced counselor, and hopefully by offering this service, we can reduce the number of suicides at Long Island Railroad. Needless to say, this is a tremendously traumatic event for any families involved. It also can be very traumatic for our engineers, who oftentimes are the last, eye contact with an individual. So we, move forward on this program. It is a difficult and serious topic, but it's one that we think professionals can help with, and we're hoping that by moving forward, we can reduce the number of suicides. With that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those on either item involving our train operations. With that, I'm going to go.
Do we have any idea when the investigations on the engineer issue will be completed?
I did have a conversation with the IG yesterday. They are moving as quickly as they can. I mean, it's been out there for a couple of weeks, so we would like to know, have they been able to make an identification of all the relevant parties? Notwithstanding that, we of course have a timetable for our own disciplinary action, and we'll stay with that. Okay. And all the parties know that we have to adhere to those time limits.
Okay.
As far as policies go regarding this incident and who's allowed up front, well, nobody's allowed in a locomotive, obviously, but this was, I guess this was the situation involved the operation from a cab end, I suppose, because it said Hunters Point. I read the incident.
Well, we have cab cars for train operations to Hunters Point as well, and
electric.
Yeah. Well, we have electric, but we also have cab cars. Where an engineer could be located. This, of course, is a breach of all rules, and we're reinforcing those rules.
Okay.
Yeah. Rod, was there anything? Rod is our Chief Transportation Officer. Was there anything about that particular train to Hunters Point that we should add for Commissioner Greenberg?
The particular train is a rush hour train that originates out of Port Jefferson. It's a cab car that is shelved by an engine on the east end, and it has a full width. It's designed to carry the engineer plus an observer. In some cases you would have an engineer trainee instructing an engineer, so it is a full width cab.
Right. But and of course your point is the locomotive was in the back pushing the train. Yeah.
But what I meant was, I mean, now there was a time, and there's still M3 equipment where he's in a cab. Sometimes they prop the door open, and it's easy to have a conversation with somebody, and you could say, well, you want to take a hand at running the train, which obviously is completely inappropriate, but it's easier to do than in a situation where it's not. I'm just trying to picture what really went on here and what the situation was. I mean, I assume it was somebody the person knew and had planned this. I mean, I don't.
We're not going to speculate on the investigation because we do have lots of parties involved in investigating that. But needless to say, propping the door open is something we want to prevent, and that's why we're re-instructing all of our train crews and our engineers. The door's supposed to be closed. You've got to operate the train that way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to go to our regular agenda now, and we have a financial report, and Mark Young is going to present that.
Good morning. I'll provide two pieces to the report. One is the regular monthly report, and then secondly, as Tom Del Sorbo did for the Long Island Bus, just a brief highlights of the July plan that you'll see in detail next week. On the regular monthly ridership report, obviously this was an odd month for ridership calculations, since for the railroads there was a fare increase in the middle of the month of June, which definitely skewed some of the purchasing patterns. But obviously the economy, the sluggish economy lingers. Just as an example, unemployment rates are, employment rates are 2.5% lower than they were at this point last year, particularly in the finance industry, which is 40% of our market. Total ridership for the month of June was down 4.1% when adjusted for workdays. It's better than what it was for May, but nevertheless still down 4.1%. Commutation was down 7%, and that included the largest drop in monthly ticket sales that we've seen all year. At the same time, non-commutation was flat, which was relatively positive compared to what we've seen for the rest of the year. Obviously, part of that is we believe there were people pre-purchasing 10-trip tickets as the fare increase was approaching, so that probably skewed the figures a little bit. Also, on the non-commutation side, on the positive, we did have the U.S. Open this year, the golf tournament, which was 174,000 riders, which we did not have last year. On the negative side, railroad transportation to the subway series was down 50% compared to 2008. The weather, there was a lot of rain, so beach packages were down. And there was no Triple Crown contender this year in the Belmont States. So a few of those worked against us in terms of ridership. Year to date, ridership is down 4.2% versus 2008, 5.3% down in commutation, 2.6% down on non-commutation. I will say that having been said, versus budget, our performance is not quite as severe since we had already projected declines when we had put together the budget. So overall, we're, quote, only down 2.3% versus budget. That's an overview of the ridership figures. With that, I'll turn it to Jerry Ring for some of the budget numbers.
Good morning. The Railroad's financial report for May can be found on page 5 of the Railroad section of the financial book. We continue to see similar financial trends in May that I've been reporting on in prior months. Revenue still runs pretty much unfavorable to budget for May, and on expenses we've been continuing to run favorable, which is good news. Total revenue was unfavorable to budget by 4% for the month of May and 9% year to date. Fare box revenue is the largest component of total revenue, and consistent with the May ridership data that Mark reported last month to the committee, May fare box revenue totaled about $40 million, but this was unfavorable to budget by 4%. Year to date, fare box revenue is 2.4% unfavorable to budget. The other significant revenue category is capital and other reimbursable revenue. While this continues to remain under budget year to date, as I had mentioned in the past, largely driven by the East Side Access material, for May itself, we were much closer to budget. Moving on to expenses, before factoring in depreciation and other non-cash items, May expenses of $107 million were right on budget and favorable year to date by 7%. Labor expenses were close to budget year to date. We posted a favorable variance of 2% or $8 million. Non-labor expenses remained favorable to budget. In May, non-labor was $9 million favorable to budget, and year to date, non-labor is $40 million or 23% favorable to budget. Factors driving this include the reimbursable East Side Access material, LCM schedules, fuel, and other contracts. There are no major budget issues to report at this time. The resulting fare box ratio for May is 45.7%, which is 1.9 percentage points less than budget, due largely to the lower revenue. Are there any questions?
This question is about the favorable result because there's less employees. I just have in maintenance. Maintenance is a large area. Engineering and even equipment is a total of 316. I was just wondering why that is. How is the work being made up? Is it through overtime or?
You're addressing headcount.
Yeah,
headcount
right.
variances. The headcount for the initial headcount plan in the budget reflects the preliminary capital schedules, and very often the preliminary capital schedules are peak in the summer months. Mm-hmm. The actual final hiring plan can never achieve that peak, so during the subsequent to the development of the budget, revised schedules are developed to better reflect the actual headcount. That's one factor driving that variance. The other factor is we budget for a fully staffed headcount. However, due to the ups and downs of a hiring plan, you end up running some of the backfilling some of the vacant positions on overtime.
I mean, my concern is the shops, especially the diesel shop, considering the problems we have with the diesel fleet and whether we're short of personnel there, whether that's even a factor. That's my concern.
Not aware of having any major vacancies in the diesel shop. We can check on that. And the hiring plan that we have in place right now keeps us pretty much right at or very close to headcount in the maintenance of equipment area.
Okay, thank you. Well, so if you could just check if there's vacancies at the diesel shop, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. With that, let me provide you with a high-level overview of the July plan, which you'll see in detail next week. There really are two significant changes to the July plan that you'll see for the Long Island Railroad. One relates, obviously, to fare box revenue, and the other relates to the restoration of the additional actions for budget balance, which I'll get to in a second. Again, on the fare box ratio, the fare box revenue, we'll be dropping our revenue forecast by another $61 million, which reflects two factors. One is the original plan assumed a 23% fare increase, if you recall, but then the negotiated settlement and rescue plan for the MTA dropped that revenue to 10%, so that impacts our revenue. And secondly, we've dropped ridership to reflect current trends, so that we're actually lower by 3.7% compared to 2008 actuals. So taken together, that's a hit of $61 million to the revenue budget, which you'll see next week. And lastly, of course, as part of the plan, the MTA Board voted to restore the train service portion of the additional actions for budget balance reductions. We've done that. That will be reflected in the July plan. And what will remain are the various efficiency savings and administrative savings that were part of that package. Those are the major changes that you'll see next week.
So what that does, if I can clarify, is by reducing the revenue from ridership, both because we are transporting less people and they're paying less than we thought they were going to pay, those people who are traveling, we're making that up by the additional subsidies given us by the state of New York, because that's how we balance the budget. That's basically what's going to happen between now and the end of the year.
In addition to some of the service reductions, non-service reductions that are expense reductions.
Right. But basically, because the non-service reductions do not match the revenue reduction, the rest of the money comes from the state of New York, or from the taxpayers of the state of New York, since they tend to be one and the same people in that regard. So that what that does also is that reduces our fare box operating ratio, because the less revenue we get from this point, the more revenue we're getting from this point, so that the subsidy therefore becomes a higher percentage of the cost of the ride.
That's true, although I would just caution that we have to remember that these changes are comparison to the original plan, which was at 23%. So compared to a prior year, the fare box ratio would go up because there was a fare increase.
Right.
But compared to what the original plan was, it's less.
It's less. And that's really the only way to look at it in the context of the budget that was approved in February, as opposed to the mid-year adjustment, which is taking place in July, and the changes which have occurred as a result of that. And as a result of that, that will lead into the discussion for 010, because then we're comparing it to different numbers. We're comparing it to the new numbers, not the old numbers. Right. Okay. For where we were and for where we're going to be, for where we're going to be going. And 010, some things that happened in 09 which were positive will not happen in 010, like the U.S. Open and other things over which the railroad has no control. You know, we can only hope there's a Triple Crown next June, and if there's a way the railroad could influence that, we'd like to do that. I'm not sure that we have the ability to do that, or the likelihood that the Mets and the Yankees will be both good, so that more people take the train to Citi Field. I mean, there are a wide variety of factors that influence. Well, there are a wide variety of factors that influence what we do that we don't have any control over. We have to react to, in that regard. The weather and how many people take the train to Jones Beach is a whole nother issue that you related. In June, you know, there's only so many weekends you can make that up with you can't make that up in December. You can only make that up in July and August, and if we don't make it up in July and August, we lost it for the year in that regard. So that's the issue of contingencies and how, the planning that we try to do in that regard. But some of that is not under our control in that regard.
We can only make so many projections.
Right, right.
And of course, we do our best
Right.
to continue to market our services to new venues. That's something we're very conscious of, just to get those new riders. Okay, with that, thank you, Mark. We're going to go to Rod Brooks, who is our Chief Transportation Officer, and Ray Kenny is away, and Rod will present the status of operations.
The operating report starts on page 29 of the Long Island Railroad section of the book. On the month-to-date OTP, the overall on-time performance for the month of June was 95.35%. This is a new record for the month of June. June's AM on-time performance was 96.74%. This is also a new record for the month of June for the approximately 30 years that we've been calculating the performance in the current manner. June's PM on-time performance was 92.93%, and June's off-peak on-time performance was 95.53%, which is also a new record for the month of June. On the year-to-date performance, the year-to-date overall on-time performance of 95.73 is a new record. The June year-to-date AM on-time performance of 95.95% is also a new record. And the June year-to-date off-peak on-time performance of 96.07% is also a new record. There were 5 100% AM rush, 100% rush hours in June, 4 in the morning and 1 in the PM. And for the year, there are 41 100% rush hour periods, and the record was 43 back in 1993. On the car availability side, the AM car availability number was met every day. The MDBF for the M7s exceeded the increased goal of 300,000 miles. The most significant, on the major events, the most significant event of the month was on Friday, June 26th. There was a track condition in Nassau Interlocking, which is our interlocking right outside of Mineola train station, which resulted in 41 late trains. On the special program side for the month of June, Mark Young had previously mentioned that for the U.S. Open, we provided special service commencing on Monday, June 15th, and continuing through the following Monday, June 22nd. During the event, we provided 184 additional trains and transported approximately 174,000 customers. The program was coordinated with the cooperation of Long Island Bus and the MTA Police and Nassau County Police, and also employed an on-site command center. As for Belmont, again, we did not have a Triple Crown candidate, but we had a gating program in effect for the Belmont Stakes. We added 63 extra trains, 33 eastbound and 30 westbound, and we moved approximately 21,350 customers on Long Island Railroad trains. And we had one other event on Monday, June 22nd. We had an Amtrak occurrence. We had a modified service plan as a result on June 23rd, and working with Amtrak and with assistance from Metro North, we were able to have a normal rush hour for June 24th, and we certainly appreciate the assistance of Metro North and the MTA Police Department. And that concludes the operating report. Are there any questions?
Yeah. Last month I had raised at length the issue of the diesel fleet. And, I'm still hearing things from people, especially in Suffolk, who are upset that the persistent delays and comes from the unreliability of locomotives. Now, I know we have no real long-range plan, but I know, Helena said she'd look into it and see what can be done. And I'm just wondering if maybe in September, October, we could come up with some plan to see what we could do about raising the mean distance between fails, or some plan to supplement the locomotives in some way so that we could have more reliable service. I mean, it's been diesel service has historically not been as good as electrical service, and I wouldn't expect the MDBF to be that way. No railroad is it, but I do think we need to improve here.
I do want to mention, and it was a conversation that we did have after the meeting,
Yes.
but just for the benefit, of our other commissioners, one of the reasons why you're seeing the diesel fleet MDBF, slightly down is the issue that we no longer go with no defect found. We work hard to actually identify the defect and try to find a fix for it.
Right.
So, we're in the middle of a program. It is very intense. We've done a lot of upgrades in terms of how we're approaching the diesel maintenance. We're back in contact with Siemens, which was one of
You'd
the
mentioned that,
component
yes.
manufacturers. But I'd be happy, to do another diesel presentation just to show you where we are. Again, we're very conscious of how dependent customers are in diesel territory on that equipment. So we are working very hard to ensure that we can meet the customer demand for service and the need for reliable train service. We'll look at some of the incidents, just to see if there's any trends that we're not finding. But we have been very intensely monitoring that diesel performance. Let me come back to the full committee.
Okay, that'd be
in
great, yeah.
September.
It's something-
Yeah.
Why don't we do
Before the
something in the
capital
fall,
program.
if you could,
Yeah.
on, what you've tried to do, the program that you implemented, and
Right.
what we did, and what progress we've made, and what prospects we have for the future in regard to it. Because, the unfortunate part is we have to use it.
Right.
Right.
I almost don't, the statistics matter less to me than how much the Long Island Commuters Council members or what they're hearing out there. And if there was, well, it's okay, I wouldn't bring it up. I'd say, well, the MDBF is low, but the passengers are saying it's okay, which means that maybe there's a failure that didn't actually cause a severe delay, and that's okay. That's fine.
Right.
I'm more
That's
concerned
what
with
we
what the
have-
passenger
Yeah.
is concerned with, them that the locomotives fail a lot. I'm just, that's what that's the statistics that are in the book, and also they have the lowest on-time performance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
It shows in those statistics as
in
well.
some of those areas where the frequency of service is less,
Yeah, you're dead.
right, the minute you have an incident, you're bringing your whole on-time performance down.
But the passenger's stuck too.
Yeah,
It's not like,
exactly.
there's another train 15 minutes behind.
But that's exactly right, because of the frequency, so they need that train and they need that one to operate reliably. So we will come back. We have the Booz Allen recommendations. We've been moving forward on those, and we'll give you an update.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
And we appreciate your advocacy for, the diesel customers. We know that they are a group that is very dependent on that train service, and we're working on it.
And also, this goes without saying, I was elated to hear the on-time records that you set, but with the drop in revenue, to keep these on-time records means quite a bit of empty seats, so it costs money to keep those standards up when your revenue is down. And I'm not saying anything that anyone in this room doesn't know, but I think it needs to be noted.
I'm going to put my other hat on for a moment. I think that's one of the issues we are going to face as we go forward. If we are in a long-term recession and we don't get a bounce back, at what point do we have to better match the level of service to the number of customers? And that'll be something that we have to examine and pay attention to.
Curious, because you can't predict, I know this just from being,
Right.
you can't predict day by day what it's going to be, what the weather's going to be.
And we had been enjoying, a really wonderful, robust off-peak group of riders because, people were enjoying leisure activities and entertainment activities, and now those, activities are really dropping. So while some of our peak trains remain full, some of our off-peak trains are even emptier. So it is a balancing, I think, that we're going to have to approach from an MTA-wide perspective. Okay, I'm going to go, if there are no further questions, right to the MTA police report.
I'm sorry, I have
Kathleen
one brief comment. Just on the accidents, I just want to commend, apparently the gap measures, the measures you're taking to warn people and also the gap are showing a dramatic effect. You look at the train door incidents and the gap incidents and they're way down. So
Thank
I'd like
you.
to note that and commend the
Yes.
railroad on that. We know, Woodside, we no longer take a running jump to get on the train.
Very good. Okay, Kathleen.
Good morning. The crime report is located on page 48 in the Long Island section of the book, and I'm very happy to report for the month of June, we have a decrease in robberies, felony assaults, burglaries, and grand larcenies for an overall decrease of 21% in reportable felonies. And as Rod touched on, we also, for the month of June, had crowd control details in place for the U.S. Open and the Belmont Stakes, and we also had a unplanned service plan for the June 22nd and 23rd outage to assist with operations on those two dates. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we're going to go to Kevin Tomlinson on the capital program report.
Good morning. The capital program highlights are in Section 5, page 51 of your book, and include 5 milestones for the month of June. We have 4 completions and 1 commitment. We have the beneficial use of Broadway Station, beneficial use of Woodmere Station, the design completion of Woodhaven Bridges and the Queens Boulevard Bridges on our main line, design completion of the Babel and the Spionk signalization, and the 1 commitment is the construction start of the replacement of the elevators at Great Neck Station on our Port Washington branch. The standard project updates on Central Islip Police Facility, Atlantic Avenue Viaduct, East Side Access, Atlantic Terminal, and the mainline improvements are found on the following page. In terms of Atlantic Terminal, I'd like to tell you that for information, we have initiated a public outreach information campaign on the project at the terminal. As the project comes to completion in this fall, we are advising our customers of both of the completion and the need to periodically reconfigure the access paths at the station at the interface points between the construction of the pavilion and the station platforms themselves. And behind Helena, you will see a poster that we've placed there at the terminal advising our customers, and likewise we have pamphlets there handing out to our customers advising them of the construction and the access paths and how they'll be reconfigured. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
And of course, we really look forward to the end of construction at the Atlantic Terminal. We think it'll be a very beautiful terminal. But while we just get through these last couple of months, we very much need to assist our customers in being able to find their way. So we are hoping this will work. We'll also have some customer representatives, some of our own Long Island Railroad representatives helping customers as the last phases of construction, will require some, periodic changes in the way that they have to find their way to a track. So we don't want to leave our customers trying to find their way. So we're doing this entire outreach program. Okay, with that, I'm going to go to information items, which are on, start on page 55. We do have the fall schedule adjustments. The schedule adjustments are listed in the staff summary. They cover the period of September 8th through November 8th. I'm not going to detail them because they're all listed, but I do want to highlight one very important project that's coming up. You're going to hear much more about this, but I want to give you notice and the public notice right from the outset. We will be doing one of our most important modernization projects. It's the Valley Interlocking Signal Cutover. And we will do that on the weekend of October 24th and 25th. There will be a special timetable and outreach to customers on that. When we do that signal cutover, we will have to substitute buses for trains from Valley Stream to Jamaica. So as you can imagine, that is very large service. We are specifically planning this cutover after the Columbus Day holiday, when the bulk of the summer ridership, which is now extended all the way to Columbus Day out east, will be over, and we'll be able to do this major cutover, important modernization project. Never easy when we have to close down train service, but again, I have to stress how essential it is as we modernize the railroad. We also have our environmental audit And there are a number of findings that we can answer any questions on. I do want to point out one item I'm extremely proud of, which is the Morris Park diesel locomotive shop upgrade. One of the issues for maintaining the diesel fleet is having a proper facility. The Morris Park facility has not been upgraded in many years. Some of the original elements from the 1900s are still present at the facility. We are going for LEED certification, which is Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, with the new building, so that we are the most environmental friendly we can be on that. And we think we can do that in a cost-effective way. We also are doing the greening
This is the
product.
design work. The
Yes.
construction part of that will be in the next capital plan?
That is correct. It is in the next capital program, and
Okay.
we are committed to seeing that go forward. It is
Okay.
essential for our diesel operation. And just one other highlight, we're moving toward all the green products that we can utilize in our operation, consistent with the Governor's Executive Order 134. With that, I'm going to turn to procurement. And there are 12 procurements in this month's package, totaling $151.3 million. There are 4 items in the non-competitive section, totaling $2.8 million, and 8 items in the competitive section for $148.5 million. The non-competitive section include a joint procurement led by Long Island Railroad on behalf of itself and Metro North, which will result in the award of a 3-year sole source contract to Nordco. The combined amount is $1.5 million, and it is for repair and replacement parts on various pieces of machine equipment used by the maintenance of way departments. Again, this is an example of Long Island Railroad and Metro North moving forward on joint procurements. May I have a vote on the non-competitive procurement?
Any questions on the non-competitive procurement? All in favor? Aye.
I'm just going to highlight in the competitive section 2 very important contracts that we are letting with funds from the stimulus program, the federal stimulus program, American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. That includes Phase 2 of the Atlantic Viaduct work for $66.3 million to Kiewit Constructors. And we also have, I'm very pleased to say, and some of you will remember when we had to decommission the Babylon Car Wash and the impact that has had on our cleaning standards for exterior train wash. I'm very pleased to say we're moving forward again with stimulus funds, a contract of $14.4 million to Fortunato Sons to construct a new train wash on the old Babylon train wash location. I have to say that the village of Babylon has been extremely cooperative with us. We've been negotiating with them for easements, and they have moved forward in a way that has greatly assisted us. They do have a golf course that's adjacent to some of our right-of-way, and we want to ensure that we do not dramatically impact their golf operation. May I have a vote on the competitive procurement?
Any questions on the competitive?
Just one on the bridge replacement, Kiewit Constructors.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wonder why at this time why we're demolishing and reconstructing bridges. I mean, it's been we've had a capital program since the early '80s. Usually, you don't. If you maintained a bridge, you don't have to reconstruct it. I mean, is there some thing that we're changing about the bridge, or that there's certain moving parts that wore out?
I actually want to address that point you made. With some of our own rail bridges and highway bridges that we're responsible for, we do maintain them the best we can, but there is a useful life at which point you have to make a decision that you're going to do more dramatic rehabilitation. The Atlantic Viaduct fell into that category. It was a structure that's 100 years old. There was a determination that annual maintenance could not keep it up at the level that we wanted to, and we've made a dramatic investment. This is actually Phase 2, and there is a small portion left to be done at Phase 3. So this is the steel that holds up the viaduct.
Right, well, well, we could talk about this later, but usually steel, if you paint it and probably maintain it, should last, unless it's something
Well, we
structurally
did get
wrong.
100 years, and I think
Well, you
that's
can-
pretty
okay.
good.
Okay.
But we are very,
Yeah, let's go. That's fine.
okay, and
Any other questions on the competitive? All in favor? Aye. Okay.
okay, and there are no ratifications this month, so we thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor? Thank you all very much. We will see you in September.
Yes,
No
have a
August
very
meeting.
good summer.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
summer.
Thank you.
Not even moving.